Hey, welcome back to the final part of this exercise. Thanks for sticking it through this far. Um, we're almost there, guys. We have the majority of the site done. There are some cosmetic things that now we have to deal with. Let's look at it from the top down. Obviously, the logo. Let's bring up that mock-up to compare here. The logo, I haven't mentioned it yet, but basically this is a combination of our two fonts. So it's not a graphic, although you can use the graphic from Photoshop if you were so inclined, or you can use the typography that we've integrated from Google Fonts. So this is Paytone 1, and this is ASAP, and they're just formatted differently, and it's a nice little exercise to deal with text in that context. We'll have to create a little box for our tagline over here. And if we look at the rest of our document, we don't have that much left. An obvious thing is to center this image. So we have to split that margin left and right. And what else? What else? We're missing the little heading down here, social media icons. I'm not going to bother updating the text because that's just typing. There's nothing technical there. You just have to update the text. But the placeholder is already there for you to swap out the text. And I do believe that's pretty much it. So without any more delays, let's get into it. Let's start with the logo here at the top. Just going to minimize this. Take a quick look. I'm going to say, okay, this is size 84, and this is about size 46. Let's take a look at how we approach that kind of thing in Dreamweaver. I'm going to switch to design view because it makes it a bit easier to deal with text. Scroll up to the top. So here in the logo box, let's see what's cooking. Not much. It's div, class, logo container, logo box. So first thing I want to do is replace the text here. So I'm going to say XS magazine. Oops. There you go. Now I want to format each one of these individually because XS is one type of font, magazine is another type of font. However, if I put these into div containers, the problem with that is, then I have to start dealing with floats, I have to start dealing with dimensions and all that stuff. It can get a little too much, more than it's really worth. What I can do in this particular case is use the span tag, which will keep both of these little separate items on the same line. So a quick way of doing it in Dreamweaver is you select, for example, some text that you want to modify, in this case the XS, and if you right click and scroll down, you'll notice there's an option for wrap tag. And what this does is if you click it, it'll ask you, okay, which tag do you want to wrap around this particular piece of text? If you start typing span, there it is, you can double click there. And seeing as you're here already, you might want to try some inline styling, just in this particular case. So for inline styling, right, it's style equals, and now we're going to change the attributes. Font family, and for this one it's going to be Paytone 1. And be very careful with the font names. When you're calling a specific font name, especially from external sources, it takes the single quote here, not the double quote, the single. I know, it's just so much to keep track of. So Paytone 1 is the family we want to go with, semicolon, and now we want to assign the size. So font size 86 px, and you can leave a space there or not. And don't forget that semicolon at the end, and that's that. So if you press enter, it will create, let's look at that HTML and see what's cooking there. There it is. So it created a span with all the styling that we put in there. And there's the excess, and there's the closing span tag. So at this point, here's a time saver. Just copy that and put it in front of the magazine as the opening tag. And, sorry, all you have to do then is close the span tag. And we're getting a little crunched over there. There we go. So, and now instead of Paytone 1, you want to switch that one to ASAP. And you want to change the size here from 86 to maybe half of that, 43. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. Put that on a separate line. There we go. So here's the excess part, what that looks like. Oh, we don't want the break, that's for sure. We want them on the same line. And following that is the magazine part with the span tag assigned to it. And again, the span tag is there so that it doesn't break into a new line. And everything is on the same line. Let's take a look at this in live view and see what happens. Oh, wow, that just really broke our layout. What happened? It's important at this point, because it's easy to forget things that we did at the beginning of this exercise, that there are a lot of dependencies here. So why would this magazine break to over a new line? Well, one reason is that logo container might be too small. See right there? It might be too small to fit this entire thing in. So let's find our logo container here. Change our width to maybe 500. There you go. Okay, that, and we have even too much room. I'd say maybe even 400 would be better. There we go. And what's happening up here with all this extra space? There's a break over here that we don't really need. So let's remove that. And things are starting to fall into place now. Could it be that our span, our inline span tag, has some margin and padding that we need to get rid of? That might be the case here. So let's go back to our inline styling. So our span tag, we'll just continue adding some styles here, and we'll say padding 0 and margin 0, just to reset, make sure there's no influence there. And we'll add that also to our other element. So excess and magazine. Let's see if that helped a bit. Not really. It did give us some extra space, but I'm not sure what's cooking up here at the top. Is there anything in logo container? Height? Maybe we can change the height. No, we don't want to do that. If anything, we want to increase it. So I changed my height to 120. And my width was 400. There. Maybe a bit of padding on the left so that it's not flush against the page. There you go. And you know what? That doesn't look too bad. If there's anything else you want to change, you can just go into the inline styling over here. And, for example, add color. Make that a nice dark gray. Don't forget your semicolons at the end. And this one will make a lighter gray. So color, space, whoops. If you find that you don't get the color, there you go. Just retype the thing and it should come back. Where'd it go? So color, enter, there it is. So this one can be a lighter gray, enter, semicolon. Refresh, and there you go. Now it's starting to come together. What's missing here? We're missing the tagline. So next to logo container, we might have to create a new div container. So let's do that. We click here, we'll go to design view for this. Now the trick here is to position your cursor in the right place, which with Dreamweaver, I gotta tell you, it's one of the more frustrating things, because I want to position my cursor on the right here, so that when I insert something, it goes this way. But, you know, Dreamweaver has its own way of doing things, and it doesn't let me really click there unless I spend 20 minutes trying to find that perfect sweet spot. So for this case, again, I'll probably go into my source code, you know, after the logo container div area and before my primary navigation, so this area here. Insert my cursor. I'm going to insert a new div. We'll call this tagline. We'll create a new CSS rule for this in our styles.css document. Okay, and here again we just want to do a couple of things. The box, let's give it a width of 400 pixels. We want it floating left so that it doesn't create a new carriage return under the logo. We'll give it a height of, what was the other one? 100, 120 pixels. Margin, we don't have to worry about. Padding, let's give it a padding of 20 pixels all around. And we should be okay. What I'm also going to do, though, is add a border. Just so I could keep track of it visually. And I'll probably erase it later. Just a thin gray border so I could see it. Okay, and click OK. Now it's probably going to mess up my layout. See, it goes all the way over here. Because did I assign a float of left? No. Did I? Let's see. Tagline. Yeah, it's floating left. And if I choose my logo container, which is here, I should probably float that left as well now, so that the tagline will, there you go, come up next to it. Now again, because of this floating, you end up with this whole broken, messed up layout, and you're like, oh no, what the hell happened? What did I just do? Don't worry about it. This is why we created that clear fix, right? So right after tagline, what you're going to do is insert a div. The class is going to be clear fix. Just click OK now. There it is. Delete the placeholder text because you don't really need anything there. We want it to be invisible. And if you refresh, things come back to normal. Life makes sense again. It's all right. A couple of things to look here. You know, you want to make these somewhat even. So I'm going to change the height of my tagline box to maybe 80 pixels. Does that work? There you go. Look at that. And now I have a container here for my tagline, so I can just put in some, you know, gibberish text, or throw in some lorem ipsum and style it light gray. For the image over here, to center it, we need to see how it's structured. We have our hero container section. That's this entire image. In that we have a hero box, and inside that there's the image itself. So if we look at the hero box, it's the full width. So we need to change the width of hero box in order to center this image properly. So there's hero box. The image is 920 pixels. So I want to make sure it's the same size. There you go. And now that I have that extra space over here to work with, oops, make sure that's selected. Now I can split the margin auto on either side. Auto and auto and bingo. There you go. Nice centered image. And if you've played your cards right and you've assigned your 20 pixel paddings and margins, everything should line up really, really nicely. You know, if you have an extra carriage return in there, it's not the end of the world. Let's just take a look at our footer to wrap things up. There it is. So there's no styling on the footer. Select it in your CSS designer here. Give it a height of maybe, I don't know, 60 pixels. Nice. You can give it a background color. You know, maybe a light gray, just to differentiate it from the rest of the section. There's some text in here. You know, you could change it to something like, you know, copyright 2016 The Dude Productions. You can go back to your CSS text align center. There you go. And there should be a vertical align somewhere as well. I can never find it in this CSS designer. There are just so many things to click on. You'll have to forgive me, but usually I would just... There's a vertical align, vertical align. There it is. Let's see if this works. It's hit or miss. If we choose middle, no, it doesn't work in this case. So what you would want to do is in the footer, maybe add a bit of padding at the top. You know, like 15, 20 pixels. Just to push the text down and it's not stuck right up against the top. There you go. And that's it, you know. Add a couple of links here and there, fine-tuning, and really that's it. The rest is just tweaking and finessing and changing a few things. Let's switch to live view so we can see our social media icons again. There you go. Let's compare it to our template. Oh, we're missing the heading for our social media icons. So let's go into our code for that. Here we go. And what's the text we use? Show off on social media. Sure, why not? So show off on social media. And this is a heading 3. So H3 and H3, refresh. There you go. And I do believe we're pretty much done for the most part. The rest, I'm sure you guys can figure out how to do it. Make sure to save your work, guys. There's nothing sadder than losing work that's been done. Oops. So just click File, Save All, done. One thing we haven't done yet, and it's the scariest part, is preview in your browser. And it's probably something I should have started doing earlier, but you know, now's as good a time as any, because ultimately this is where all the judgment takes place. Dreamweaver is nice, but we saw the layout isn't perfect. viewing it in the browser is really the ultimate test. What I would do next is remove this little thin gray line, because I know that my text here for the tagline will line up nicely. And everything else looks pretty sharp. You know, you could put in a line break over here to break it up, or fine-tune a few buttons here and there, but for the most part, you're in good shape. To sum up, break things down into components, tackle them one by one. Don't be afraid of experimenting, going into the code and changing things there immediately. Use the tools at your disposal. If you're familiar with the interface, use that. If you prefer the code, use that. Don't forget the clear fix when using floats. Very, very important. Go back to that video and rewatch it. I explain why we need to do it and when to use it and how to use it. So you might want to visit that. Otherwise, you know, you have a lot of heartache and sadness whenever you're trying to align stuff. And that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. I know this was a long series to stick through, but hopefully you've learned how to put together something from scratch. Check back in with other videos in the future to see other cool things that we can do with simple HTML and CSS. If you have any comments or anything, please email me. The contact information is on the page. And if there's anything, I'd be more than happy to help. Talk to you soon, and have fun with your coding.